For more on this big deal about Boeing and the rival with Airbus and everything planes, Mr. Scott Hamilton is live for us in Seattle. He's an airline industry analyst and managing director of the Leeham Company. Good to see you, sir, and welcome to the show. So this whole deal, I mean, this is huge, and I'm sure you're there in the Pacific Northwest, home of the commercial aviation group for Boeing. I'm sure there's been an awful lot of chatter with respect to reaction on this deal, right?
Well, there certainly has. It is a big deal. $38 billion list price is probably about half of that after discounts. But that's only one part of the deal. The completion center is another part. Some agreements with AVIC and COMAC in China to do some other work. It's much a bigger package than just airplanes.
But my sources tell me that China has been looking for, in these particular deals, they buy big planes and they want to have a factory at home. This situation where they're having what they call a delivery center. First, explain to us what that really means. And second, does that satisfy, for the most part, what the Chinese were asking for when it came to negotiations?
Well, of course, I have no way of knowing what China was asking for in the big picture, but a completion center, delivery center, what that means is Boeing will still assemble the 737s here in Renton, Washington, Seattle suburb. They will fly these airplanes. They're what we call green because they actually have a green sheen to them before they're painted. They'll fly them over to China. The Chinese will paint the airplanes. They will install the interiors. They will complete the airplanes, hence the name, the completion center. And then, of course, they will deliver the airplanes in China to the Chinese airlines.
Do you think this is, I mean, I know we're speculating a bit, but this is essentially the beginning of perhaps someday having a full-on assembly plant there?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that to be the case. As you mentioned a few moments ago, Airbus already has an A320 assembly plant there. They've just agreed in the recent months to put an A330 completion center there, which is just exactly what I've described about this one. Ever since Airbus put that assembly line in Tianjin, they've been gaining market share in China. They've been actually probably on a par with Boeing in terms of selling airplanes there. Boeing has actually fallen a little bit behind. So this is a tactical move, it's a strategic move, and I do think that it will ultimately lead to an assembly line, whether for the 737 or another new airplane remains to be seen.
What's the reaction you're hearing from workers?
Well, they're not happy. They look at jobs going out of state. They look at jobs that don't belong to the unions here in Washington, and they don't like that. But what's interesting is that just a week ago, Airbus had the grand opening for its A320 assembly line in Mobile, Alabama. And I actually asked Tom Enders, the CEO of Airbus Group, if he had the same kind of problems in Europe that, of course, we're seeing now here in the United States with the labor unions here. And Enders said something that was really very interesting. This is all about growth, he said, and for every one job that's created in Mobile, Alabama, that means 3 more jobs in the home country. Boeing is basically saying the same thing. Their commercial airplane CEO, Ray Connor, fundamentally said the same thing to the unions here, but they're still skeptical.
What about Europe? I mean, I know we talk about Asia a lot, but might Boeing consider, given the location of Airbus, opening up a completion center perhaps there?
Well, I'm sure Boeing being Boeing, they look at that now and then. I have no way of knowing if that's an active consideration. I think at this point it's probably not because Airbus actually dominates Europe pretty well. China's a market, though, that one day is going to be actually larger than the United States with domestic air travel. And Boeing's been losing market share there. As I say, this is a tactical and strategic move for Boeing.
Here's a question I have. So the deal to buy planes, I believe, were 737s, a lot of them. I guess this is part of the completion center. So some people might ask, well, will this expand to other models? For example, the 777. I know they're building a new 777X and also the current one in production, the 787 as well. I mean, or is it just going to be confined to one type of aircraft?
I think for the near term, it will just be the 737. The 777 family is in a transition from what I call the 777 Classic, that's the airplane that's in production today, to the successor airplane, which is called the 777X, that will have new engines, new wings, and so on. That transition doesn't begin to take place until 2018, 2019. So the 777 really isn't there. The 747 line is all but dead, so you're not going to see a completion center there.
Yeah.
The one that you might possibly see someday would be the 787, but that's really too soon to make a prediction on that.
All right, Scott, always good to see you. Thank you very much. Joining